everybody. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting. Today's date is October 7th, 2014. It's 6 p.m. and I do call this meeting to order. And as always, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I know we have some presentations going on tonight and some people that want to talk to us. You'll have to bear with us as we go through the formalities of all of our proper paperwork. It shouldn't take that long to do that, but just hang in there with us. Sandy, we'll ask you to read the open meeting statement for us.
This meeting and all other meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And would you also take roll call for us?
Brian Smith.
Here.
Steve Hackett. Deb Fensky.
Here.
Paul Hagan.
Here.
Alan Keeland.
Here.
Scott Perchatsky.
Here.
Dave Peterson.
Here.
Paul Mayo.
Here.
John Lockwood.
Here.
Jillian Peterson.
Here.
And Eric Olson.
Here.
9 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, next on the agenda is actually the consent agenda. These are, and it's a small list tonight, of course, but these are items that we'll act on with one motion. Is there any items that council members would like to see move from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? If not, we're looking for a motion to approve.
I did have a question on
Oh, do you have your hand up?
item G, the taxi cab driver's license, because there was a memorandum in there too from the chief.
That's on the regular agenda, Alan?
I'm sorry, I thought it was on the consent agenda. I beg your pardon.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
all right.
Second.
We have a motion by Lockwood, second by Fensky, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. All right, then we have the regular agenda. There are no additional handouts that we have tonight. And I think we'll just leave it in the order that we have it. So we, again, would be looking for a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Move to approve the regular agenda.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Hagan, that we approve the regular agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Let's move on to non-agenda items and announcements. We have a proclamation that we would like to read tonight. And I'll read this for the record. Proclamation of the City of Waupaca declaring October 19th through the 25th, 2014, Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week. Whereas the City of Waupaca has an interest in promoting the social and economic well-being of its employees and citizens, whereas the well-being depends upon the existence of healthy and productive employees working in safe and abuse-free environments, and whereas surveys and studies have documented that stress-related health consequences for individuals caused by exposure to abusive work environments, and whereas abusive work environments can create costly consequences for employers, including reduced productivity, absenteeism, turnover, employee health-related expenses, and have left unchecked costly litigation, and whereas protection from abusive work environment should apply to every worker and not limited to legally protected class status based only on race, color, gender, national origin, age, or disability. Now, therefore, I, Brian Smith, Mayor, City of Waupaca, hereby proclaim October 19th, 25th through the 25th, 2014, Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week. And this is, we'll put this on file. We have the public input part of our meeting. This is set aside for anybody that would like to speak to us on a non-agenda item. So if the item is not on the agenda and you'd like to speak to us, just please step up to the podium and give your name and address for the record. Anybody that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? All right, we'll move on. Unfinished business, we have none tonight. We do have new business. This is budget time of the year, and that's why we're seeing as many people as we are in here tonight. We're going to start with the outside agencies to present their request to the City Council. And we're going to, let me just explain a little bit about how this works with the Waupaca Area Fire District, the Gold Cross Ambulance, and the Recycling Center. Those are as the city and the townships together. So as we vote on it, we are voting, of course, just on the city part, and then the townships will also have to vote on those at their meetings, obviously. We did invite the township people to come tonight, and we do have some here, so they'll have the opportunity to hear this. And we'll start with the fire district. I don't see Chief Olson here tonight. But I am, and Chris Klein is also a member of that, I think he's the only town individual here, the town chairman individual here. The fire district did have a budget meeting last Monday, and they did raise the amount of their budget, but from a city standpoint, since it's based on equalized value of improvements and personal property, our equalized value actually went down, so the city of the Waupaca will actually see a decline in our bill to the fire district of just under $500. The highest increase this year, and again, it's because of equalized value, would go to the town of Dayton. They have an increase of about $2,000. The town of Farmington will see an increase of about just under $1,000, and the township of Linden and Waupaca are right around $400 each in increase on the fire district. So we're looking at, from a city standpoint, and that's what we're talking about tonight, we're looking at about a $500 decrease. The exact number is $484.65 if you want to put that in your motion. And I guess I'm looking for a motion that agrees that we will, we agree to the 2014 budget minus the $484.65, which would equal our 2015 budget.
I'd make that in the form of a motion. Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Hagan and a second by Lockwood that we approve the 2015 Waupaca Area Fire District budget. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Deb Fensky.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Jillian Peterson.
Aye.
Paul Mayo.
Aye.
John Lockwood.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
And Paul Hagan.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Thanks, Sandy. Okay, let's move on then to the next presentation is actually Gold Cross Ambulance, and I know we have some individuals, 4 to be exact, that are here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for having us tonight. With me today, I have Jack Hill. He's the Executive Director of Gold Cross. Dennis Preby is our certified public accountant, and then Barry Tamaris is the previous owner of Waupaca. So thanks for having us. Before I actually get into some numbers, did everybody get the number sheet in your packet? Okay. One of the things I want to talk a little bit about is a first responder group. Gold Cross has been working with a local group. There are 6 people that will become first responders, not only in the Waupaca, but into the Waupaca area as well. When we first came into the region here, There were for first responders, but they weren't licensed, nor did they have a medical director. So when we found that out, we sat with the group, and we've been working with them to get that group up and running, because I think it's very important that you have a first responder group that's established. Dr. Mark Westphal, who's our medical director, will become their medical director, and it looks like November 1st will be probably when they start arriving on scene. So we will be talking with the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, getting all those details worked out so that when people start showing up on scene, people know what that's all about. So it's very positive. I think it's going to be a good adjunct into the system, and we work with 26 different groups. Annalisa Shaw is a paramedic for Gold Cross, and she will be assigned the liaison for that group. And how they work, that is, she will go to their monthly meetings, help with the trainings, and show them, you know, what's going on in the ambulance and the CPR and all those other kind of things. So it's a very positive situation. So I felt it was important to let everyone know that. Okay, let's get into some numbers here. Looking at you know, this coming year, at the end of this presentation, you're going to see that your subsidy requirement is going to go down about 31 cents. So it was at $13.01 last year. It's going to be at $12.50 this year. Some will say, well, how can you do that? In fact, ambulance runs are down. They were not as high as we thought they would be in the region. There's a good opportunity that came across here. Starting January 1st of 2015, Gold Cross will be taking over the New London ambulance service. Now, ThedaCare owns that service. They're backing out of it, and we will take over as of January 1. So that allowed some good opportunities, not only for the Waupaca region, but it did for the Waupaca area region as well. You know, we focus on a regional setting system where we do things as a region, not so much with boundary lines. And what it's going to allow us to do is to take and put paramedics now in the city of Waupaca. So they currently have EMTs there, okay, and those EMTs are on call. So they have 10 minutes to respond to the ambulance and get out on these calls. Well, I can tell you with the run volume in Waupaca, and you look at the run volume in Waupaca, and you look at it in New London, those three units, we can share resources with each group and make this work very, not only cost effective, but it'll be very efficient. You will not see a reduction in your response time. In the city of Waupaca, you're looking at just a little over 5 minutes when you call 911 getting an ambulance on the scene. That will stay the same. You're not going to see a reduction in that. What will happen is we're going to work out some differences in how we transport non-emergency patients from the hospital to other facilities, like in Appleton. Sometimes we go to Milwaukee, sometimes we go to Stevens Point, those kind of things. So what will happen in the region starting in January is Waupaca will get paramedic level service. You'll have a paramedic ambulance here in Waupaca, and you'll have one in New London. As the system gets busy, let's just pretend the unit here in Waupaca goes on a call, Waupaca will float over to Waupaca. That's how that will work. If another call goes out, New London will float out into the region. Gold Cross will float units to the city of New London. That's how we're going to get resources out here. So what's really nice about the system is that you're not going to run out of units, and we're going to be very efficient, and we're going to be effective on making pre-hospital care work really well in the region here. So looking at that, when you kind of go down under the numbers, that's why you see the Waupaca, Waupaca, and New London as far as revenue sources on this particular sheet. Just kind of running through that, you're looking at the gross ambulance revenue with Waupaca and Waupaca, $1.85 million. The revenue allowance, $906,500. When you look at the gross revenue for New London, it's $550,000. You take their revenue allowance out of there, it's $269,500. The net ambulance revenue then for the year would be $1,224,000. Total subsidy requirement to make this happen is $451,000. Net ambulance revenue and other operating income of $1.675,000. When you look at our expenses, you're looking at the paramedics there at $884,000, payroll tax, employee benefits, $367,300, other expenses of $246,600. If you have questions on that, Dennis is here. He can answer any questions you might have, and as well as the depreciation of $110,100. So when you look at the total expenses for the year, it's $1,608,000. So we will net an income of $67,000 on that, and I want to talk a little bit about that. When we look at being not-for-profit. I always tell our employees we're not for loss. We have to make some money in order to reinvest into the organization, and that's what you're looking at is a 4% margin, if, of course, all the numbers work out the way we believe that they will. Then you go through the population. You know, the total population will be 36,089 people, and the cost will be $12.50. You know, what's good about this kind of a system here is as other groups sign on, that number gets lower. I'll explain that a little bit. When we look at in New London, Hortonville is very close to New London. It's 6 miles away. They were currently getting service from Gold Cross from Appleton, so they weren't paying a subsidy. We are going to approach them, and they know that. I'm on their agenda for December 4th for next year. So we need to really look at how can we do this effectively, how can we make our response times as good as they are, and I'm happy to tell you they're very good, and you have very experienced paramedics coming to your house. So with that, I would take any questions.
You have the Waupaca population as 15,716.
Pardon me?
What area does that encompass?
That's with the towns as well. So when we add in Farmington, Dayton, Lynn, Ogdensburg, that's the whole population together.
The one difference between the population between the fire district and the recycling is the town of Lind. 100% of the town of Lind is in with Gold Cross, with Waupaca, right, Lance? And in the fire district, it's split between Waupaca and Waupaca. Yeah, so that's the one difference that you will see in populations because of that. But otherwise, it's all of Dayton, all of Farmington, and all of town of Waupaca, along with the city. You touched on this when I had the opportunity with Henry and also the administrator from the city of Waupaca. You touched on a little bit tonight even about Hortonville being added, and then I think you also talked about another village too that was going, maybe
Right.
would be added in 2015, and how that could affect us.
Yes, and it will. As when we look at New London, Waupaca, and Waupaca, anybody that's going to use that would be closest to that unit, okay? Well, I'll use Lynn for an example. There, many parts of their area are closer to Waupaca, okay? So Waupaca will respond to their township now, and they'll have paramedics there. No different than if we're 6 miles away from the city of New London to Hortonville, and that unit goes there, they should be paying their portion for that unit as well. And so that's what I mean by that. And so they don't know that 100% yet, but they do know that I'm on their agenda for December 4th. That will not affect them this coming year. We will work with them to get them graduated into that kind of a setting.
And can you explain, and I've had the advantage of hearing this a couple times, and that's why I'm asking the questions, but can you explain to the crowd, to all of us, that although in Waupaca officially we are going to be going from one ambulance or two ambulances down to one, and how you feel that we actually are going to have better coverage?
Well, that's a good question. Currently, we do have 2 units that sit out at the ambulance station. Their utilization, when we look at their utilization, is 9 and 11% utilization, which means when I look at managing entities and looking at each unit, you want to see that around 30%, okay? We want to hit 2,400 runs per ambulance per year if we can do that. The runs just are not here. And so that unit, that secondary unit, is really used for non-emergency transports out of the hospital. Many times that's at the hospital transporting people. And so when Barry owned it, he needed to have 2 units here because he didn't have the secondary resources like we have that we can move and float units into the region to make this work. That's why this will work very well. Your unit will not, this unit will not go to the hospital and take patients non-emergency out of the region. It's not going to happen. We will get the resources to the hospital. We will take care of the hospital and we'll get patients moved out of there. It just will not be used from the 911 unit here. Now, if somebody is critical in the hospital, like a STEMI patient, a true heart attack, and they need to move, of course, we're going to send the ambulance there. That's a life-threatening situation. We'll move units over and we'll start moving resources in the area to cover that. But the non-emergency stuff that can wait, we're going to do other ways of moving those patients out of there. You know, the downside is it's the run volume. When you look, you need about 1,400 billable calls to break even with one ambulance. So, you know, when you start doing a cost-effective sheet on that, I know I can tell you I would not stand in front of you and tell you that this system wouldn't work if I didn't believe it'll work. I've done ambulance for a long, long time. We do this all the time in Neenah, Menasha, and Appleton. We're sharing resources. What's very important here is everybody's paying the same. So there isn't one area paying more than the other. Everybody's paying their fair share for the unit, and everyone will get the resources. You won't just stop with 2 ambulances or 3. You will get 4 units if you need them, because we will always float units out. Now, we will have an ambulance, a spare ambulance sitting here in the garage here, so that if employees, say a transfer goes out and they want to have overtime or something, we'll send a page out if they want to come in and grab the ambulance and go and take it. Those will be some ways in how we move other patients out. And we'll also, if there's special events, you know, you're going to see us in the community. Nothing is really going to change any differently than what you had before. It just, you're going to have very good response times. We will watch this. I've told Henry, if he ever wants any kind of response times or data, we'll give it to him, you know, whenever he needs it. And this system will work well.
Anybody else have any other questions? I'm sorry. Yeah, can you stand by a microphone, or do you want to use this one?
Well, I've got a loud voice.
Well, I didn't ask you that.
Caroline Murphy, Town of Farmington. I would just like to know the exact budget number for Farmington. Do you have that?
Yes, it'll be $12.50 per capita per person.
What numbers are you going for? 4,008?
You know, I can get back to you on that. I can call you tomorrow. Exactly on what the numbers aren't exactly broken out here. It's just all a total. So
Okay.
whatever your population is at 1250 is what it will be.
Okay.
Mark, are you seeing less calls since you took over from Waupaca Ambulance? I mean, or
We have.
same or?
Yeah, we've seen less calls, and some of that, you know, we look at hospice, perhaps. Some of that now they're in nursing facilities, and the runs are just down. You know, and that's the key component here of the business. Is if the runs are down, that's good for the community. But you know, when it really comes to looking at financial numbers, it's not good. We need about 1,400 billable calls to break even. Yes.
Can you clarify one more time how it will work if Waupaca's unit responds to the call? Will Riga's float somewhere in between and then New London's float somewhere in between?
Yes. Yep, what will happen if, say, Waupaca goes out on a call, because we know, you know, they'll have about 1,700 calls, Waupaca has about 290 calls, okay? So Waupaca will go out on a 911 call, Waupaca will come and probably sit by Fleet Farm on either on the highway, and they'll stay in the unit so that they're ready to respond. So if they have to go back towards the Waupaca, they're quick, they can get back in there, or if they got to come into the city. Another call comes in, we will float New London all the way out here as well, then we go to New London. And one of the things I didn't talk about is we have a call predictor in our dispatch center. The mayor got a chance to look at that, and it's really good data. It takes 5 years worth of data, and it kind of gives us a pretty good idea where our ambulances are going to be at this very moment in time. And we actually, our dispatchers, move vehicles around related to that. At first, when that came out, I was thought, well, this could be kind of, you know, hokey, but they talked us into getting it, and I'm glad we did, because it really does show us what we're doing. Waupaca's part of that process too. You know, every unit has satellite vehicle tracking inside the unit itself, so we can watch in our dispatch center with units where they're going. We know the second a call comes in, how long it's going to take us to get there. The first responders are another good component here. You know, you will have a very good, robust first responder group. By January 1, for sure, we're shooting to have 12 people that will also be going out on calls. So overall, I am very comfortable with how the system will look, and I would have zero problems coming and explaining things to anybody if they want to talk about it in the future.
Dennis, I know I asked you, or Mark, I'm sorry, I know I asked you this question and you said Dennis is the one that's probably needs to answer this, but you talked a little bit about the 4% net profit, which is, you're estimating at about $67,000, but you also have built-in depreciation there of $110,100. And I'm just wondering, Dennis, is that for replacement of equipment and also?
No, the depreciation is to cover the previous money that we spent. There's really two ways of looking at it. So we can either take the depreciation, which is the money that we've spent mostly on vehicles and equipment, and depreciate that, and you're paying for that over time. The other option is we back out the depreciation, and we put in there then a reserve for replacement number, mostly for vehicles, as well as a debt service number to pay for our acquisition of Waupaca Area Ambulance. If I did those two numbers, I was at about $111,800, which was very close to the $110,000 depreciation. So this model here is based on financial statements. The other model would be based on cash flow. I don't want to get too complicated for everybody, but there's two different ways of looking at it, and they really come out almost exactly the same, both very close to $12.50 per capita.
So the 67,000 that you're saying that you're using for future investment in equipment and vehicles, is that put into a separate account?
No, we have no separate account for that. That's the Gold Cross standard for all areas. That's our board
And
mandate.
that's why you use depreciation?
That's our
to pay
board
for it?
mandated number
Okay.
that we need to use.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay.
Anybody else? Do we have an exact number for the city, or can we just use if we're okay with this, council, can we just use the $12.50 per population of the city? Because I don't, Jeannie, do you have the exact number?
We're at 6,000,
6,035
Okay.
32
times 1250. The calculator.
or something.
6,035 times, well, we could use the, okay. Tell me that again. How much, 70?
75,437.
Okay, so council, again, understand that the townships are also going to meet with these individuals in the future, and they will be discussing it at their meetings. But if you feel comfortable with this, we can go ahead from a city standpoint and approve this.
I'd move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayo, second by Keelan, that we approve of the request from Gold Cross Ambulance in an amount of $75,437.50 for the year 2015. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Jillian Peterson. Aye. Deb Fensky.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
John Lockwood.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
And Alan Keeland.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thank
Thank
you
you.
guys for attending. Before I forget it, it's not on your agenda because it's a non-dollar amount, but I want to make sure that I relay this information to you. And Jeannie, help me on this, and Sandy, on the recycling. Normally, the town, again, the towns and the city contribute to the recycling district. And for 2014, the city of Waupaca contributed approximately $17,000. Okay? We found out last year, and if you remember, I'm sure we all remember, but you found out last year that starting in 2015 that the county was also going to assess us for recycling for the transfer station up in Manawa. And that dollar amount is about $100,000 for the county and about it's about $14,200 is gonna be the city's share of that. Okay, so what the recycling committee agreed to do this year for 2015 is not assess the townships and the city for our recycling center here and use the cash reserves that they've built up there. So basically, we're gonna be paying $14,200 to the county in 2015, but we are not gonna be paying $17,200 to our area recycling center. That's a one-year fix though, because next year, of course, we'll be probably paying the county that or more, and then we will not have cash reserves left or available for us in the recycling account. So we'll end up having to pay both the local one and then also the transfer station. What this does do for us, which is much appreciated, is it does give us, it does save us about $3,000 for this year, but what it also does for us, it gives us the opportunity to look at different ways that the city and the township are doing recycling in the area. And does it make more sense, instead of using our transfer station and our local, if we don't go to, let's say for example, curbside pickup for garbage and recycling, and is it cheaper that way? So it gives us a lot of opportunities to look at different ways of doing things, and not saying that that's the answer, but it does give us a year to discuss that and try to come up with a way so that we don't end up seeing our cost almost double for next year. So that was recycling, and that's why it was not on the agenda, because it was the amount that we're going to be paying to the county is already in the general budget for next year. We have a representative from the Waupaca Historical Society.
Good evening, and once again, I thank you for allowing me to present our budget to you, and also thank you very much for the past support that the City of Waupaca has given us for many, many years. And I always said, without your support, this organization probably would be very difficult to operate, or probably might not be able to operate. I'm assuming that each and every one of you have a copy of the budget, so I don't have to go through all those figures for you. Okay. The dollar amount that we have requested, again, is the same as last year, as $15,000, and I believe it's the year before that also. And that's basically the dollar amount, along with the other figures that are presented to you, that we need to operate. There are no frills to that particular budget. These are the very basic expenses that we incur each year. In the past, it was often mentioned that some of these surrounding townships ought to contribute to the cost of this organization, and we have requested some monies from them, and actually we got absolutely no response, except for one year, about 2 years ago, in the town of Farmington did response. But since then, we have absolutely no response, yes or no. Of course, no response is a no. Along with the expenses, the normal expenses that we've had in this past year, I'd like to mention that we did have some very major projects completed within the last 2 years. And these projects got completed because we were very fortunate that we had some nice donations and grants that allowed us to do that. For example, this past year, the Holly Center got completely painted. We also had brickwork done on the front of the building, along with some cement work. The front step needed to be replaced completely, along with some sidewalk on the side of the building. Over at the Hutchinson House, the side porch was in such bad shape that we actually deemed it unsafe to walk on. we closed it off, and then in the past 2 years, we were able to completely fix that porch and make it usable again. The same with the porch that's on what we call the Heritage House. And it's basically through those donations and grants and appeals that we've made that we were able to do that. So that's why I keep saying that the dollar amount that we're asking from the city is to the very basic operating expenses. I'll give you some other little figures of how important we believe this organization is to the city, to its citizens, and to the visitors. The depot this past year, starting January 1st, had 451 visitors. The Holly Center over here had 247. And this summer, the Hutchinson House had 570. So we've had a total of 1,268 visitors visiting our historic sites. Now I'm talking about the Holly Center and the Hutchinson House and not the depot. I haven't been able to get a breakdown from Mike Kirk as to where all these people came from. He just gave me a grand total. But on our registers, I got some figures as far as the Hutchinson House and the Holly Center is concerned. In this past year, we've had visitors, individuals, 56 individuals actually, from 17 different states. That's not including Wisconsin. The Holly Center had 61 Wisconsin cities, individuals from 61 different cities in the state of Wisconsin, and the Hutchinson House had 31. And also, I like to say that this organization is very important to the Waupaca residents because for the Holly Center and the Hutchinson House, we had 189 Waupaca residents visit our organization. We also have some future projects and plans. We're running out of space for storage. In the back of the Hutchinson House, we have this what's called the Heritage House, which was a cottage over on the King Veterans Home at one time. And once the Holly Center was made available and we bought that, the Heritage House was used as storage and it's been kind of a glorified storage building. And we're in the process of trying to eliminate that as a storage building and make it again as one of our historic sites in the city of Waupaca. So we're looking at various possibilities of what we can do for additional storage. The Holly Center is not handicapped accessible. And we have been looking at back actually several years ago with Dr. Roy Holly and with Chet Krause from Iola. They actually started a fund to have an elevator put into the Holly Center. So there is some funds started for that. It's going to be a long-range plan because that would be a very expensive project. The Holly Center, I'm a little bit concerned about its roof. We've had a little problems with some leakage there, and it's just been fixed here and there, and I have a feeling that might become a major project somewhat in the future. And I've also said for that, I think the carpeting is kind of bad in the Holly Center right now. So those are some of the major expenses that have come up, and again, most of those have been very fortunate that we have gotten those through donations and through grants. So that's basically it, the information I have for you, unless you have some questions as to detailed as far as the budget is concerned. By the way, also with me is our president, Dennis Lear. Forgot about you. Sorry, Dennis.
Bob, I just have a question, or a comment. Do you want to mention, people have been using the depot for events?
Yes, I don't have a list of those events, but there have been various events going on at the depot all year long. Dennis, can you help me out on that a little bit as to the various events?
Dennis, I'm sorry, I should have explained this before, but to the courtesy of the people that are watching this on TV and so on, we'd like you to use a microphone so that they can hear it.
Yes, I know last week they just had, the art community had a soup, and where they sold soup and the bowls that the soup came in. And when the model railroaders come to town, they have we get a large number of them coming up to the depot. There's been other various organizations that use it, and as the depot becomes more usable, we're having the floor refinished this fall, and most of the outside looks pretty good now. We got the soffits all done this year, and so it's a continuing project of mostly Mike Kirk, and as it becomes more usable, I think more organizations will use the depot for various meetings.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? As you can read in the letter that was written by Dennis, or he signed it, they are not asking for an additional amount this year. They are asking for the same budget request of $15,000 that they received in 2014. They do have another variable, obviously, that they have to come back to the city for, and that would be the hotel motel tax. And they're requesting $7,000 there, and that, of course, is done, in early part of November?
At the end of November.
End of November. So they won't know that number until then. And Dennis, is that the same number that you believe you received in?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was right around that, right, from the hotel motel
Yeah,
tax.
that varies a little bit each year as far as.
Right, that's usually a percentage, so it varies a little bit.
Okay. Can I just touch on something that I'm looking at here? As far as your membership dues are those new dues that you receive each year? I mean, like, does everybody that belongs to the organization pay an annual due?
No, we have, right now, I just went through the list. We have about 150 mailing labels, which means that doesn't necessarily mean we have 150, 160 members, because there's family memberships where 2 people or couples and a family membership and so on. So I would say our membership runs pretty darn close to around 200, give or take, in that area. Of that number, we have many lifetime members, and they have paid that dollar amount. And if you look at the budget, under membership dues, I'm estimating right around $800 a year. We get around from $8 to $9 to $7 to $900 a year from memberships.
And those are basically new members?
No, new members along with returning members.
Oh, okay. That
So
are not lifetime?
They're not lifetime, that's correct.
I must be a lifer.
You're a lifer, I'm a lifer.
All right.
We also have business memberships.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we started a program where we sent out membership information to many of the businesses in the Waupaca area and the city of Waupaca and the area. And we had I feel, some pretty good response for that. And we're estimating, well, it was right around business partners, we received around $1,000. And last year, and I'm estimating that to be about the same, hopefully might even increase a little bit and pick up some new members. But we have 9 or 10 business members at this time.
Awesome. Anybody else have any questions or comments? I was lucky enough, people, to believe it or not, but I was lucky enough to attend the Hutchinson House tour with about 25 fourth graders, and it was really enjoyable. So I think it's well worth it, whatever we're spending here.
Yeah, we do that every fall. We have, I don't know how many 4th grade classes come through and take a tour of the Hutchinson House.
What do you think? They're asking for $15,000. Obviously, as I said, the hotel motel tax is a different request at a different time. So we would be just approving a dollar amount that the city would put towards their budget.
I'd make a motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Hagan, second by Keelan, that we approve of the Historical Society's request of $15,000 for 2015. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Paul Mayo.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
John Lockwood.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Deb Bensky.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
And Jillian Peterson.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Very good. I thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I'm going to, Henry, set this up here. We have the fiscal year 2015 shared ride taxi. Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. With us today is Dave Lowe. He's with Running Cab, who owns Brown Cab Service. In your packet was a memo from him to me and some other supporting documentation. I think I was going to just let maybe Dave review where we're at. Every year we come as a staff to ask permission to submit the grant application. The grant is due October 15th, so this is just a normal process that we do each year. So.
Thank you, Henry. I was here a couple months ago when we kind of outlined what we were suggesting that we do. And basically with the application, what we're presenting at this time is follows through on what we said we were going to do. We actually followed through with that with some fare increases and a few additional hours of service, primarily opening on 3 holidays and a little bit earlier in the morning to assist with the dialysis runs. The revenues that we're projecting to see and the new agreement that we have made with the Veterans Home pending approval from them, their bosses down in Madison, will enable the city to spend about $5,000 less for taxi subsidy in 2015 than there is in 2014 with an increase in service. So we think that's a pretty good deal for everybody concerned. The service will be a little more complete and comprehensive. The city subsidy will be less because we'll be picking it up from user fees. So we would like your permission to let Henry file the application. We really don't know what the numbers are going to be until probably March or April when the state gets around to let us know what the state and federal percentages are. But we have been estimating that that is going to be a stable number at about 58.5% state and federal funding, with the rest of the funding for it coming from user fees, which includes the King contract and local tax levy. But we're looking at that local tax levy being smaller in 2015 than it has been in the past couple of years. If I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Anybody have any questions? I know we've talked about this at the last, or I don't know if it was the last meeting, but a couple of meetings ago.
It was 2 meetings ago.
2 meetings ago.
They all blend together for me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, and it's good to see that he's even improved. They've improved on that even more than what they had said they were going to do. So we're getting better service for less money. You know, I don't know how we can go wrong there. If there are no questions, then we'd be looking at, Henry, we have to.
Well, actually, Mayor, I wanted to say that the capital grant application was my error when I did the agenda, because if you remember, we got a grant and we have 2 years to expend it, and you gave authorization for us to buy a vehicle, a van this year, and we're in the process. I believe in my last month's report, we're tagging on to Kenosha County?
La Crosse County.
La Crosse County, thank you.
Big difference, Henry.
Yeah, big difference. And our plan is to come back in a couple months with how we're going to fund that second vehicle. Would be the King bus that Dave alludes to in his memo. So really, you're going to be authorizing just submittal of the operational grant, nothing to do with capital. That was my error. Thank you.
So what we are asking for is approval to submit the operational grant. Okay. Everybody understand?
I would move to approve.
Move to approve. Motion by Keelan, second by Lockwood, that we approve the submittal of the operation grant application. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. All right, thank you very much. Especially for sharpening your pencil. Okay, Brennan, we're gonna let you take over on this one. It's a discussion on a proposed church being located at 215 Jefferson Street. And just for everybody's sake, Brennan, just explain where that is too.
That property used to be the, I believe, an old photo studio, just south of where the city hall is, going down Jefferson Street. It's the second building in, right next to where Stibbs Jeep used to be, the white building next to it. Old bank. There's the historical people that are on the council. It used to be the former bank.
The headless banker bank?
Yeah.
So that's the facility that we're speaking of this evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This discussion is being brought forward to the council tonight because trying to, I guess, decipher the exact code. My office received an application for a church to be located at 215 Jefferson Street. I denied that application, or my department denied that application because within the city's liquor license ordinances, there's a requirement for anybody that holds a Class A or Class B liquor license or beer license. There's a requirement to maintain a minimum 300-foot separation of the uses within the city limits. If an applicant like Weasel's or a restaurant was seeking an application for a liquor license, they would need to maintain a 300-foot separation from churches, hospitals, or schools. The city does not have a specific ordinance in place that requires a church to maintain that separation from an existing establishment that holds a liquor license. However, there's case law and common planning practices that would require that if there's a state statute or if there's a local ordinances that identifies a separation of uses, that it would be reversed on the other side, so that you would maintain that separation of uses. That's why if there was a reason for it on the one side, then you would just, common planning practice and law would require that you maintain that separation of uses in all applications, whether it's, again, a church, a school, or anything else looking to locate closer to an establishment than 300 feet. So that's why it's being brought forward to you guys this evening to make that determination. The applicant looked at our ordinance and requested that he be presented this evening to the council for consideration. Within the state statutes, along with our local ordinances, they do align pretty much evenly. If there was an establishment that was seeking to locate closer than 300 feet to a church or a school or a hospital, they could petition the council to locate closer. Since the city does not have any specific ordinances in place, again, trying to figure out exactly what direction we want to go with this. I do not find any compelling reasons why to change or to adopt any type of ordinances. Again, planning practices would, if there's a law in place, to try to maintain that separation of uses, that we would want to maintain those uses, whether it's in the downtown or any place across the city. But I kind of leave that up for the council for consideration. I believe the applicant is here this evening if the council does have any questions to ask him. And I apologize, I'm a little bit under the weather with the colds.
Okay, does anybody have any specific questions of Brennan right now? Do you want to hear from Mr. Aberg? I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that
Yes.
properly.
I have one quick question. How far is it? I paced it off. It's awfully exact. You have to be in at 300 feet, but looked like it was over 300 feet to me. But
If you use
diagonal, or you got to go with the sidewalk, or how do you do it?
according to the state statutes and the in the local ordinances, you have to do it from the front door to the front door, and that would be going down the right of way and the sidewalks. And I believe we use the GIS, and it's right around, I think, 150 or 200 feet.
I saw you walking. You look kind of weird walking like that too, though.
Heel to toe the whole way.
Yeah. I was wondering I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Walking off golf course yardages and penalties will pay off.
That's why you're always short on your butts too, yeah. Well, I mean, you did GPS, so I mean, that would be something obviously that we would check to make sure, I'll give you a second here, but that will be something we'll check, I mean, obviously. Okay,
I don't wanna change the ordinance number.
right, well, no, I know what you're saying, I mean, if,
Rhonda in my office looked at it, so I wouldn't be bringing this forward to you guys tonight unless we were looking to change something or adopt something else.
okay, anybody else have any questions of Brennan right now? Again, this is a little unusual, and this is probably the second time in 3 meetings that we've allowed citizens to speak here, but without having committees, this is obviously gonna happen more and more to us. So, Mr. Aberg is here tonight, and, I know he wants to give his side of the story. So if you wanna just step up to the podium, please.
Thank you for allowing me a moment of your time. I guess I'd like to address that, the point of the 300 feet. I did take an opportunity to actually measure it myself with a string that measures 350 feet, and that came up with 270 feet. That is by the sidewalk. Now, my question for the committee would be the statement or the distance or the actual ordinance reads that the distance should be measured along the highway. I don't think the sidewalk is a highway. So you'd actually have to move out into the highway, would be my question. If you really want to get a rock solid number, and I guess if that's the real issue here, I guess that, my opinion, the real point that I'd like to bring out is the ordinance also mentions that since it does apply to me or a church moving into that area, that it goes on to indicate that the prohibition of this waiver, this may be waived by the majority of the city council. So I guess if I'm here to say, if it does apply to me, why can't I have that same waiver? Not to change the ordinance, just to request that I also be allowed this waiver that states in the ordinance.
Anything else that you would like to?
No, I just want to keep it simple.
Can I ask him a question?
You sure can.
That building is small. Do you have, I mean, how many member church? Can I ask you that?
Right now, we're running about 12.
Oh, okay.
We're a young church, small church, and that's all we need, something small to get started.
I think there's a church that's not being used, not too far away from there. The old
That's an awful big building.
Kind of big.
We'll eliminate this issue.
I'm torn on this issue because, on the one hand, I think the ordinance or the law was put in place to keep taverns from building near churches and schools. Now you got a case where the church wants to locate next to a tavern, doesn't care that it's less than 300 feet. That's one point. On the other hand, though, what happens when weasels come in for a renewal of the license? Now, will they have to do that every time, get a waiver on the 300 feet? If that church or school is nearby?
Oh, good question.
That's why I'm torn on it.
And
I think it would require any establishment like that to come in every time, repeatedly, to get a waiver or to have the ordinance amended or whatever.
And that question has been, when I first approached Mayor Smith about this, I have reached out to League of Municipalities because, again, that is an existing establishment that has it right now, but the secondary case of, for instance, if the city council were to suspend his license, or if, for instance, that he were to transfer ownership, he would have to be back here requesting that waiver because now we have a church or located closer than 300 feet. So that he would have to come in on a year-to-year basis.
So clarify, are we allowed to vote a waiver or are we not?
Currently, you can only vote a waiver in the ordinance wise for establishments seeking a liquor license.
Oh, okay.
But
not a
again,
church seeking to be
but we
there.
don't have any rules or regulations in place on the opposite side where a church is looking to locate closer. But again, because there's established state statutes and local ordinances maintaining that separation of uses between taverns and liquor establishments and churches, schools, that's how I'm applying that ordinance to this instance, in this case.
I have a question, Brennan. Have you approached Weasels to tell them that they may have to come every year and reapply?
I have not approached Weasels on this yet, no.
Okay.
Mr. Aberg, where are you meeting now?
We're meeting at St. Mark's in the basement there.
Okay, and that's not satisfactory?
I guess we've been meeting there for about 6 years and there's no potential growth there. It's just something that it's an opportunity for the church to have an opportunity to grow, to be able to actually show its own existence, to say that this is our building. And right now we don't have that ability. People just know that we meet in the basement of a church that's not ours. And that's what this has given us. And the price for us is only $100 more than what we're paying now. So this is a great opportunity for our church to move into an existence. And obviously we have greater plans than just meeting as a church. My wife is part of a diabetes wellness, and she teaches classes, and there's other opportunities for us in this building besides that.
What do you feel your growth potential in this particular building at 215 Jefferson Street is?
I haven't really projected that. I guess as we are able to more so reach and advertise, I'm sure we'll have a greater opportunity to draw. And as the potential to grow into that building, there's obviously capacity that we could only reach so far. So our hopes within the next couple of years is seeing 30 to 40 people able to become part of the group.
Okay.
Are there certain hours that you would be, is it just gonna be a Sunday or Saturday nights, or is it gonna be during the day, during the week? I did talk to one businessman, he's concerned if taking up parking spaces during weekday work hours, 8 to 5 sort of thing.
As to address that, I will not be there during regular business hours. It'd be Sunday morning would be a service, and then maybe evening. I guess it depends on how the group would grow and the need for the group. Possibly, mostly evening times would be times. We were looking at, like myself, my wife teaches the wellness and diabetes class, and the possibility of having another alternative meeting places, maybe something like that during the middle of the day for a group from the church, from the hospital to come. That's about it. Otherwise, we don't plan on using, plus we do have some off-street parking there. Not much, but a little bit.
Brendan, you had indicated in your memo that you're ready to work with Mr. Aberg to find an alternative location. Anything pop into mind yet?
Not specifically looking at sites. I mean, I don't know what the criteria is for square footage or anything else, but there, in my opinion, there's an abundance of properties available within the city that I think could serve this establishment and the growth that they're looking for that's not located as close to a existing use that has a liquor license right now.
One more.
Go ahead, Dave.
Mr. Stubbs is renting this. Does he have the right to rent to whomever he wants? Church sign up or where? Can you answer that somehow? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good question of Brennan, but yeah, I mean, in this case, we have something else in place that stops that from happening without permission of council.
Any use or any type of, I mean, I'll put the church aside for a second. You know, within every single zoning district, you know, they have different operations, different businesses that can locate or operate within that district. Within this district, you could have a church locate there, correct? But again, we are still faced with 300-foot separation of uses.
Go ahead.
Can I address that 300 feet? obviously, it hasn't been really determined permanently, as anybody, and where it needs to be measured from. There was estimates put out there from my understanding. Like I said, I measured it with a string, but I didn't use a tape measure. I guess if that's, ultimately the question, where it does come down to the 300 feet, shouldn't it be really established or to where it needs to be measured from?
What did you say the GPS amount was?
Ron and ran it before. I ran on vacation, so and I unfortunately did not ask her to do that before tonight's meeting. But I know again it was under 300 feet. Otherwise, this application will not be brought here this evening.
And you
again,
also agree that it's under 300 feet with your
Well,
string.
from where I walked, yes. I guess my question is whether or not it's where it needs to be measured from.
the way that it was measured was from the front door down the sidewalk and to the other front door. And that's how, there has been a couple other instances over the years that this ordinance has, caused for a couple different liquor establishments, and that's been the custom have been practice has been down the sidewalk. A highway is considered a multitude of definitions, but if there's a sidewalk, that's where pedestrians are going to be walking, so that's where it was measured from.
So I guess the answer to your question is it is less than 300 feet.
Yes, sir.
In our estimation. Yep.
I guess I'm having a little problem with this. I'm kind of torn like you are. But I would like to know and maybe hear from Weasel's owners. Councils change every year, and if they would come back to get a waiver on this or whatever they have to do, another council could deny them because of this. And they're an established business who've been there a very long time. So I guess I would like to know how their owners feel about having to come back every year to get this.
Well, can I add to your question a little bit?
Yeah.
And you can tell me, no, I'm wrong here, but I know that we mirror the state ordinance, and I'm just asking this question, but can we reduce it from 300 feet for the bar?
You can't have less than what the state has right now. So 300 foot is the minimum. You couldn't reduce your entire ordinance to 200 feet or 100 feet.
So Weasels or the new, and this goes back to what Alan said and Deb, we can't reduce that 300 feet. It has to be 300 feet. So the only way that Weasels would be protected is if this council and all future councils agree to the variance. Am I right?
That's correct.
And that variance would have to be asked of Weasels, not
Every year.
the church.
Correct.
So
Well,
they
it might not have to be every year. It might just have to be an interruption in, sorry, John?
Well, it'd be every application.
So it would be.
Every year, sure.
Okay. So it would be every year, sorry.
So it would be on the application, kind of like a boilerplate thing. It would be just written on there then, as long as the church was there.
This might be a dumb question, but is there any way to grandfather them?
Hold on just a second. That's a question for Brennan or John, I think.
You would have to establish, I think, an ordinance in order to grandfather that in.
Okay.
And again, I would be very cautious of that because you start setting precedents, and that's the concern I have. One direction or another, whether it's this location or any other location, you start setting precedents, you have to pretty much abide by that, or you start opening up potential lawsuits, from a case-by-case basis. So I caution the council in what direction we go either way, but whatever precedent we do set here.
You had something?
I do understand that the state statute does protect establishments that already have a liquor license, and if you look into the state statutes a little deeper, it does indicate that it protects them from any establishment coming in afterwards, I believe. You'd have to read that. I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's, I don't even remember the numbers, but I did read it within the state statutes that it does refrain from somebody taking a let, stopping us from changing that situation.
So as the front door sits right now at both premises, it's shorter than 300 feet.
Correct.
So Mayor, in order to, do we need to vote to affirm the denial or just simply go on and nothing happens?
Well, we can, I mean, Brennan has already denied it, okay? Actually, it has to be, say that again to me, how that works. The bar actually is the one that has to ask for
The bar on it, well, the reason why this was brought forward to you this evening, because again, I denied the original application. This was brought forward at the request of Mr. Aberg because he believes he has the authorization or the right, based upon what the state statute talks about, having the opportunity to ask for a waiver. He assumes that on the flip side of it, he has the opportunity to address the council to ask for a waiver. That's why it's here this evening.
I think we understand that, but I think it's Weasels and other establishments that we're concerned about now. And if what Mr. Aberg says is correct about there being a grandfathering clause in the statute, then I think we should delay any action on it until we know more about it.
I have that right in front of me about, the statute says it does not apply to premises covered by a license or permit prior to the occupation of real property within 300 feet of any school, hospital, or church. So to me, that means that if because they already have their license in place and the church is coming in, that this does not apply to them. The 300 feet rule.
Right, but however, if, again, the city council were to suspend, or if there was a transfer of license because there's a new application, then that individual would have to apply for a waiver.
But that wouldn't mean that that Weasels would have to come in every year because they're already covered by a license.
I think what you're referring to is that before they set the 300-foot restriction, there were churches, taverns closer than that. And they are grandfathered, not new ones. Not if the church moves. Causes a problem. Years ago, they didn't have this. So when they passed it, obviously there were cases where churches and taverns were closer together than 300 feet.
In Wisconsin.
Those taverns were grandfathered and did not have to get a waiver. This is not what we're talking about.
Wouldn't they say that it doesn't apply to premises covered before this
Before
statute?
this was enacted.
Instead of saying that
exactly.
before the
But-
occupation of
But
property.
this isn't before it was enacted. It's now.
Eric has a question.
Is there any room for interpretation on how to measure that 300 feet? I mean, can we, lack of better words, can we bend that rule to go straight out to the street and then down to the, the center of the intersection and then over and then to the front door? I mean, is that possible?
Seems like it would almost be the same that
It's
way.
going to be
though,
more.
Eric.
It's going to be more.
Or more.
If you go to the center of the intersection, then all of a sudden you went farther than, across the sidewalks at the crosswalk, out another 33 feet, well, not 33 feet, but probably 16.
Yeah, I'm
Then you gotta
saying.
come back that 16.
Yeah, I'm
Now you
saying.
added at least 33.
That's what I'm saying. Can we
But
bend it so that we can get to 300?
The ordinance is the shortest route, which would be the sidewalks.
Right.
The ordinance says shortest route?
Hold on, you can keep going. I'm sorry, Eric. I got other people that want to ask questions. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wasn't, I hadn't heard that it
No,
had
yeah.
the shortest route.
It does state, specifically in our ordinance in the state statutes, the shortest routes. That interpretation over the years by previous councils, everything else for liquor licenses has been the sidewalk.
Way to dig into this deeper and table it for a month and come back? Do we have to make a decision tonight?
We don't. We never do. We can certainly look into it. I mean, if that's what you want, we can certainly do that. Paul?
How this is done, has been done in the past, is from the front door to the middle of the street, and then back to the middle of the street and to the front door. That's how it was done in years past, as far as measuring distances for liquor licenses and churches and schools. That's how it was done. So whether or not what the ordinance says or not, but that has been the precedent in the past.
But either way, are we gaining anything here? I don't know, and that would be
Probably
something we
not
could
enough,
find out.
let's put it that way. But
Right.
It's 270. Then
It's really not.
I mean, I think you're making it longer by doing that, to tell you the truth, because if you walk out the front door.
That's what you wanna do.
Yeah, that's what you want to do.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm sorry, but I mean, yeah.
But that's the way.
You're
it has
making
to
it
be.
longer there, but then you're making it shorter at the other end. Because you're in the middle of the street still.
to the front door.
Yeah. So you're in the middle of the street and crossing instead of crossing from the sidewalk over. It seems like it's a horse apiece.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It would extend the distance because you'd be walking away from the building, down the street, and then coming back more than what you did by walking straight down the street and to the right. So you're actually moving away and down and back. So it actually adds 30 feet to the distance, which I marked as 270 feet.
Well, whatever we do, and we can look into this a little bit more. I mean, we gotta know exactly what you're looking for, but, I mean, we are setting precedent for future councils too. So, I mean, we wanna make sure that our interpretation hopefully mirrors what future councils would expect to see too, and makes sense to them. So I think that's very important to us too. But again, I mean, I think it would be in Mr. Aberg's advantage that we table this and try and get some more information on this. The disadvantage, of course, is that you'll not be able to rent this property until we come to a conclusion. But now, Brennan, we are not talking, we're talking at the council level or a committee level, right? We're not talking, this has nothing to do with planning commission or anything like this here, okay? So we're not looking at an ordinance change.
Well, I'm looking at Mr. Hart on this one.
Well, I would suggest you go and decide if you're gonna measure that thing, how you're gonna measure it, and then decide if you got 300 feet. Do it accurately, who would be disinterested.
Mayor?
Start at the front door, go to the center of the street, go all the way down the center, to the center of the intersection, come back, and then go to the front door, or you're gonna go on the side. It says the shortest route along the highway. The highway extends outside of the side.
Okay.
Paul has said that we used from down the middle of the street. I don't recall there was ever an incident that this came on.
I remember an incident because I fought at the Holiday gas station. I remember coming and speaking to council
Yeah, see,
about
I
that.
think this only applies to taverns, it doesn't apply to liquor stores?
Must have, we had.
Class A and B.
must have.
Retail.
Yeah.
Class A or Class B?
Well, not only was it,
Away.
when the holiday, I mean, I remember this too to a certain extent, but,
Class A was.
but it wasn't only the Trinity Lutheran Church, but it was also the school at the
Right,
time.
Exactly, and I
I
fought
might
that,
use
and
the front.
council turned me down because they said it was over 300 feet, but they said it was measured the way Paul said, out to the middle of the street, all the way down, but if you went the shortest distance, that's probably less than 300 feet.
Well,
And
we
I,
might have a picture of that somewhere, huh?
So can we check that precedence and see what we did that time?
because when speaking with Rhonda about that, it was measured from, my belief was from the sidewalk, which is the shortest route. I know exactly, because that's the one that Rhonda brought to my attention, and that happened before I got here, so.
Okay, so do you guys wanna table this? And if you wanna table this, what do you want staff to do for you? First of all, you wanna make sure it is 300 feet based on what, well, I mean, you could do it a couple different ways to help us out, I guess. You could do down the sidewalk, you can do down the highway, come up with whatever distance you get there. And we could talk about what we feel the interpretation is of that. Okay, I guess, I mean, I think all of us as council members, I mean, we rely on Brennan and John Hart to explain to us what shortest distance means, so, we'd have to be convinced differently what that is. Okay.
Mayor,
Paul?
from my viewpoint, we have two things going on here. We're tabling it to look for an opportunity to potentially violate the ordinance stating shortest route. The other thing is, our Director of Development has recommended this be denied, and he feels pretty strongly about it, and we're looking for a reason to deny his denial. And I'm not sure that's something we should be doing.
We're not looking for a reason to deny as denial. We're looking for a reason to get it right is what it boils down to.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both of what you guys said there. I mean, but it really does, and I said this before too, it comes down to interpretation. And we have to make sure that whatever we do, obviously we feel comfortable with, but future councils also, because it's going to affect businesses in the future too. So this is pretty important, and I don't see any reason why we can't table this. We've had a long enough discussion tonight to table this and just talk about it at the next meeting. We might be rehashing the same things again. And I don't disagree with you, Paul, but I mean, maybe something else will come up in the meantime. I mean, that's just my suggestion here is that we do table this, and you want to go, we're not going to do this at the 21st meeting. We would have to do it at the first meeting in November, because the 21st is budget. That will be long enough as it is, but
I would like to make a motion that we table this to a future meeting pending remeasurement from the front door to the middle of the street, to the middle of the intersection, to the front door of the establishment.
I'll second the motion.
okay, we have a motion by Keelan and a second by Hagan. Everybody understands. I don't think I can repeat it perfectly here, what he's asking for. Any discussion on that?
I'd like to question it.
Hold on a second. Scott?
Don't we also have to include the fact that it sounds to me like this ordinance reads, Mr. Aberg can't ask for a waiver, Weasels has to come in. So we couldn't do anything tonight anyway, could we?
Scott, the motion though is
It's
that
tabling.
Mr. Keelan wants to find out if it is outside of the 300
Oh, he
feet.
just wants to measure.
And I think we'll find
Yeah,
that out in
that's
short
his
order,
question.
and
Okay.
perhaps
All right.
Mr. Aberg wants to be
I'm
there.
not
when-
talking about an ordinance change or anything. He wants to know. So basically what we're saying is that how Brennan measured it, or Rhonda measured it with GPS, and Mr. Aberg, who also measured it with a string, says that it's less than 300 feet. But we want to make sure, using an exact system, that it is inside 300 feet. That's what your motion is.
Yes, that's what that's the intent.
Okay.
I stand corrected.
I would only think that walking out to the middle of the street is the long way. Just go from where you walk out the front door, walk the sidewalk like a normal person would do, cross and go to the front door. That would be the shortest, directest route.
It says the
Establish
shortest
that
route
precedent.
along the highway. It doesn't say the shortest route along the sidewalk. Highway would know that's the street.
The highway would be the right of way, and to John's point, the right of ways, the sidewalk's within the highway already.
And in the meantime, I think Brennan said he had some ideas for possible other locations. If we table it for the month, maybe he and Mr. Aberg could actually go look at another place or two and have an alternate solution.
Okay. So we do have I'm sorry, are you speaking to this motion?
Yes.
Okay.
It's relevant. I would like to know how we measured from the holiday to the Lutheran and the school back then, because that was setting precedents back then. So if we measured it that way, shouldn't we do it the same way with this one?
Well, and we talked about that. Whatever we do tonight is setting precedent for future. So if there's already a precedent in place, we probably should try to follow that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking for, yeah.
I agree, unless we disagree with it.
And I will have Rhonda pull as much information, and possibly have to bring Mr. Bob Underberg back in, but yes.
Okay. They must have a file on that, on how they did it. Because I knew there was some controversy.
Yeah,
on that.
I was part of that controversy
Yeah.
because I argued against it.
Yeah.
I remember vividly how it was measured, and that's
Right. Okay, thank you, Sandy. Sandy, I don't know if you heard Sandy or not, but she said she will look for the minutes of that meeting also to find out how we did that. Okay, anything else? So we need to vote on this. So we're basically asking Brennan to measure it according to what the motion was, and then, which was not part of the motion, but Mr. Olson, just so he understands at the next meeting, what precedent was set in the past on this same idea. Okay? Anything else? All in favor signify, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't have a question on this motion, but I do have a question after the motion.
All right.
Is that okay?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? We have 8 ayes, 1 no, motion carried. Okay, Deb.
My question is, if Weasels had to come back to do a waiver every year, if you talk to them and they say, no, we don't want to do this, that is going to end the discussion pretty much right there, wouldn't it? Because we're going to force Weasels to do something.
Well, the motion was to
No, I said it
make sure it's
wasn't-
outside
yeah,
of the 300.
yeah.
So I don't even know if we're there at that
You can
part of
ask
the
the question
discussion.
after we find out the feet, I think
Yeah.
is what he's saying, the footage.
I think they watch these meetings at Weasels. We'll probably get a call here.
Well, hopefully they bring a
Before the
pizza.
meeting ends.
Yeah, send a pizza.
Okay. All right, anything else on this? Somebody, Brennan or Sandy or Henry will be in contact with you when we will be having the next meeting. I can tell you, probably will be the first meeting in November, though.
November 5th.
November 5th, okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Oh, yeah, and it's on a Wednesday because of the election also. Right, okay, thank you for
All
coming.
right, thank you, council.
Mhm. All right, we have a rental of hangar space number 6 agreement between Raymond Wisniewski and the city of Waupaca. Paul Hagan?
Yeah, on page 67 of your packet is a rental hangar space agreement for Raymond Wisniewski. He's taking over the term of the previous occupant. It was rented immediately, and the details are in your packet, and I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Hagan, second by Perchatsky, that we approve of this hangar agreement between Mr. Wisniewski and the city of Waupaca. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Deb Fensky.
Aye.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Jillian Peterson.
Aye.
Paul Mayo. John Lockwood.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
And Eric Olson.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, next we have,
Mayor, I do have a question.
oh, yeah, go ahead.
In the future, is it necessary to bring these to council if it's approved by the airport board? I mean,
Must be.
must be.
Attorney Hart?
Well.
We'll find out for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, again, the precedent was set way before you and I were here, Paul, so. But, yeah, we'll find out for you, not to make light of it. Okay, next we have Waupaca Online.net authorization to submit a Public Service Commission broadband expansion grant program. And we got Mr. Josh Warner in the audience tonight.
Okay, if you recall earlier this year, I think back April, May, we applied for the same grant for fiscal year 2014. We're unsuccessful with that. And since then, they've opened up another period to apply for the 2015 year. We weren't told exactly why we were not given the grant, but they did release kind of a generalized statement about their findings when they went through this process, and that's in your packet. And there's 2 things that kind of stuck out. They were looking for a significant match, and last time I think we had a 10% match. This new application has a 50% match, and I'll talk about that in a second. And another thing they looked at was overlap with existing service. And since the last grant period, there was one wireless internet service provider that serve this area that has ceased operation, so there's one less provider here, meaning there's potentially greater need to receive this grant. The last project was pretty large. I think we applied, I don't know, for $110-some thousand to put up 8 towers, and we just threw a great big project together, something we felt we could accomplish. And this time around, we put a smaller project together. We're focusing on doing some more significant upgrades to our current locations instead of building new ones at a much lower cost. And I think the total on this is $24-some thousand, and we proposed a 50% match of about $12,000 that we'd be able to meet on our end. So we'd be, we're doing one round of upgrades on the system right now, and this would be another round with newer technology that's kind of coming out right now, would improve signals, allow us to nearly triple the speed we're able to offer customers, and I think put us in a much more viable option. So I think that's just a generalized overview of what we're looking to do. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Yes.
It says in the PSC's memo here that public entity must have a private partner to be eligible for the grant. We
Well,
don't. How can?
If you look through the state statute that's part of this, telecommunications utilities are eligible in Waupaca Online, so telecommunications utilities. That's how we're looking at that.
Yeah, even though we sit as council members, we're also sitting as like board of directors of Waupaca Online, the city water, the city sewer, because those are enterprise funds. They actually are in it to make money.
If you recall, I know about 2 years ago we decertified from the Public Service Commission, so that just kind of shows it was recognized as a telecommunications utility.
So Josh, you just used 12,000 from your normal budget?
We'd take that from 2 places. We'd take some of that from normal profit that we get, and then some of that would come out of reserves to cover those costs. And the other thing to note, if we don't get this grant, we're still going to proceed with portions of this upgrade as we have money and time to do this throughout the next couple of years. It may not be as fast, may not be as significant, but we've been playing around a little bit with this technology we're proposing to upgrade to, and it's got some nice improvements over what we're using right now. Yeah.
So, Josh, again, just explain to me and the council what you're asking for.
We're just asking for permission to go ahead and submit this application for the grant. That's all we're asking for tonight.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the submission of the grant application.
Second. Motion by Lockwood, second by Hagan. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Josh. Good luck. All right, next we have, this is the first reading of ordinance number 06, right? 0614. This is an ordinance amending the Waupaca Municipal Code, Section 12.02, Parent 1A, Parent A, concerning application for a license to sell or deal in alcohol beverages. This is the first reading. It's on page 124 of your packet, and instead of just reading it, Henry, can you just explain to us?
Well, we had the discussion over the last month or two about the process to issue operators licenses as well as the picnic, temporary Class B licenses. And I think in that discussion, the state regulations does allow the council to assign who will do that work. And I think just, again, precedent through the years, the police department's done a lot of the background checks and came before you. And I think at the chief's recommendation, he made this, he was on the record as saying, he wouldn't have any grief if our office would do this, the clerk's office. And did meet with the chief to understand all the background processes and how to do that. And I think we determined that I don't think it's going to be that much of additional burden to proceed. Now, the ordinance was crafted by Attorney Hart, so he probably has some things to say about it as well, but this is essentially would give my office the ability to issue those licenses without coming to council.
John, you have anything to
The only thing is that, well, it would give Henry the right to do that and further authorize him to permit underage persons on the premises. There is an additional ordinance that follows this, which has to do with fencing and a couple other things. It goes without saying that if Henry got an application he was uncomfortable with, he would then bring it to council, and the council would act on it under those circumstances. So these are the easy ones that we see all the time, that every year they come around. He gets one that is questionable, or he doesn't know if it needs fencing or not, and it's something that he's not comfortable with issuing, he can bring that to the city council and have the city council act on it.
Would that include like security personnel? Because I know like Oktoberfest. Didn't we have a reserve
there's an
deputy?
ordinance that says what they have to have. And the
Yeah.
fencing is
Right.
something that is discretionary, but it does provide that they need to have security, they need to have operators licenses, and various other things that are required to get that license. And you would review those requirements as well as issue the license if the requirements are met, but also authorize that they can have underage persons on the premises.
Yeah, and then again, as the difficult ones with the fencing.
Right.
Okay. Let's do a hypothetical here, John, just to be safe, and just to know where we sit as a council. So, as city administrator, or as the clerk, I guess more, it would be the clerk in this case. There is an event. He decides that there does not need to be fencing or security. Underage drinker gets in there. Accident happens. Who's responsible? I mean, can this come back to the council?
Well, I suppose it could come back to the city because it was authorized. On the other hand, same thing can happen if the council authorizes it. Underage drinker gets in there, whatever, have a problem. The city's obligated, I suppose.
Well, I get that.
Under the
but-
terms of issuing the license. Now, I'd have to check and see just exactly what obligation the city has in respect to underage persons. But that same question applies not only to these types of licenses, but to licenses in general, where they're serving alcohol. I mean, you can act on it, or Henry can act on it. The obligation's the same.
But we do
Liability's
it.
the same.
But don't you think we do act on it because ultimately the buck stops with us?
Well, it's not for me to answer. You guys wanted this changed. I
Right.
changed it. You did talk it over and
No,
decide if that should go.
we didn't want this
Believe
changed,
it.
but okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just told to change to give you a suggested
Sorry, I'm
ordinance.
not trying to be argumentative here.
I
I'm just trying to
don't
understand.
care. I don't care if you change it or not.
You're
I'm
right.
just saying, you asked to have this brought forward. I did what Henry asked, and if you don't like it, then I guess you vote it down at the next, whatever, the next reading.
Well, one of the requirements, remember, these events, like these special Class B licenses, they have to have an insurance policy, liability policy. And, you know, you've got an operator in there, they have to have operator's licenses, so some responsibility falls onto them. It's like, I mean, again, that's not gonna mean 100% reliability, but there are some things that can be required and that are required.
Well, I guess I was looking at it more from a standpoint that it puts more pressure on you, Henry, to tell you the truth.
Well, those are the ones that are coming to you, I guess.
Mayor, I have a thought. Normal taverns, if they serve food, they can have minors in there up until the time they stop serving food. If that particular establishment serves a minor, and then that minor goes out and gets in an accident, I don't think the city's liable because they issued him a liquor license for the year. It'd be establishment. And I would think the same thing would apply to these temporary licenses too.
Okay.
I don't know, but does that make sense? Okay.
Again, my understanding might be wrong here, but the annual premise descriptions and licenses would be come to you every year. Because those checks have to be done, the fire chief has to go, our building inspector, so you would see those. So these would be
This is just a picnic license.
Right, this,
Not
my,
that- This is just a picnic license. This is a one-day event or maybe a two-day event. That's all he decides on. Ones that they come in, we want to have serve beer at a picnic for the church, for the Chamber of Commerce. That we acted on a couple last week. He decides those, and they're done. They don't come here. Any other liquor question comes to council. These are just his picnic licenses.
Okay.
Not any other license.
But the operator license, John, I
The
understood.
operator license is not under this.
Well, see, that's what I understood, like
No, this
license
only has
report
to-
1251.
Only has to do with picnic license.
Because it would expedite the request, was one thing we talked about. Okay, if that's not the case, okay, just so everybody's clear, because I thought 1251 would be, you wouldn't see 1251. Now, it doesn't mean we can't report on it in our office every month as part of our reporting, so you can see what's been issued every month. That would seem like something that should be just an expectation of all this, but I'm misunderstanding, because I'm thinking 1251 is not something the council would see.
Well, again, I'm treading on waters because I'm a part owner in a local establishment, but I gotta tell you this, and you guys have all seen this, there is a difference in opinion between Henry's opinion, the clerk's opinion, and the chief of police's. And what you're doing is you're giving in and you're allowing the clerk, Henry in this case, to make the decisions, and they ultimately, the chief might not agree with those. But the chief has basically thrown up his hands, said, fine, do what you want to do. That's all I'm saying here. I mean, again, we talked about precedents before. We've done it at the council level for at least the 14 years that I've been mayor and whatever before that. So let's not tread on this too lightly. This is just the first reading. We can think about it, talk about it next time. We don't have to vote in favor of it, but I just think it's important that we understand that.
Well, Mayor, I'm not looking for any work here, okay? And we're all part of the team.
Henry, don't take it personally. I'm
Oh,
just
I'm not.
saying
But our
that there are two people and they don't agree.
Well, basically, you gotta trust my judgment, but we gotta be consistent here, because the Park and Rec Department is issuing beer licenses every day in the summer. I mean, there's one, we're not consistent, so whatever we do, we should get consistent. And it's to expedite people's requests. I think that's part of what we're trying to do here, is people are coming in, and inevitably, we hear from a nonprofit, and with 2 meetings, it's been better. But we've had special meetings just to give a picnic license. So I understand your concern, but,
Okay. So that was the first reading. We have license report number 1250. This is a taxi cab driver's license, and this is the one that Alan had just talked about a little bit earlier in that. Henry, I got your name here, so.
I find it interesting that the cab company didn't check that he had a license. So there's probably some extenuating circumstances. I was gone at the end of the week, so I did not have a chance to talk with their manager. So obviously you can't be operating without a license. So I don't know if you're comfortable giving a contingent on getting a license, because there was no other negative.
Got the license. Isn't that what that shows?
Yeah,
Shows
he's
he
valid
didn't when he applied, he got it after.
Yeah.
He's valid.
He has a license.
Oh, I thought that his memo said he didn't have it.
He
Well,
did.
it did.
He did
It
on
did, and
10-1,
then
he
he
did
got
on
it. No.
10-3.
Okay. Yeah, I misunderstood
Yeah,
the
I
memo.
did to it first, but yeah. Well, the memo does say he didn't.
So,
So everything else is fine. He just didn't have a valid driver's license. He has a valid driver's license now, so this would normally be handled under the consent agenda, but we have it here on the regular, so we'd be looking for a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Fensky, second by Keelan, that we approve of license report 1250 for a taxi cab driver's license. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Okay. License report number 1251, this is the operator's license. Again, your name is on here, Henry, but this is,
Yeah, I'm not sure where the chief is with all his background checks, Lieutenant.
I believe he had indicated to me that everything was fine, that they were good to go.
And then again, like we do check to make sure all fines and fees are paid the city before we issue it.
I'll move we approve license report number 1251.
Second.
we have a motion by Lockwood, second by Fensky, that we approve of license report number 1251. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Next, we have a review of the draft of the strategic plan for the Parks and Recreation Department for a 5-year plan, 2015 through 2019. Aaron?
Thank you, Mayor. This starts on page 136 of your packet. First, I want to thank you guys for your involvement in this process, as well as the park board members that are here and our staff. I will just run through this with you. The idea is for you guys to review this between now and next meeting. We are looking to have park board adopt it this week on their Thursday meeting. They've been looking at it for a month. And then if you guys have any input, please get that to me as well. We'll start with the introduction here. Basically, you guys know the process. We met with a total of 24 groups from the community, and we went through the questions that I've talked about numerous times, but I'll go through them again quick. What do you like to see the Parks and Recreation Department preserve? What would you like to see us change? And what would you like to see us create that you feel is a need in our community? Now, that might be ourselves with our staff. It might be through a partnership. It might be a multitude of different ways, but things that you feel Waupaca does not have that we can assist with. You can see, basically, we took all the input from the community groups. We took it to Park Board. They reviewed it. They gave staff a direction on what pieces were most important from that input, and then our staff graded it on that same page that we're looking at on those bullet points. Is it a new effort? We graded on a 1 to 5 scale. Is it a new effort? Is it innovative? Is it a potential new audience? So on and so forth. And then that is how we plugged our goals into our matrix later in this plan. Our outlook and implementation section just states that basically UW Extension helped us. Each year we will be reevaluating this, revisiting it with the park board and staff. Things can change in 5 years. There's no doubt about that. So this isn't a concrete plan, but it is what the community has wanted this past year. And we will revisit that each year. And then it basically says that the Parks Board will support this upon adoption. Number 3, there are focus group participants. Those are just a list of everyone who participated in our 50-minute focus group sessions. You'll see in the preserve piece next, I just kind of listed the top 10 preserve pieces. These are things that the community reached out to us and said these are the things we want to make sure that we don't put by the wayside in any new efforts that might come up. These are the things that we want to keep up to the same standard of care that it has been. You can see park system, youth activities, senior center, trail system, adult programs are your top 5. And then 6 through 10 you'll see listed there as well. We went into narratives on these just for explanation on each of those points. And then we have on page, let's see what page it says. Well, with the tables there, it's just a distribution of from the 2010 the census of age distribution showing for seniors and who will have coming into our senior center here in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years and how big that group looks. Also shows the senior center member numbers from 2005 up until this point in 2014. The rest of this is informational on the preserve piece. On page, let's see, I'm on the wrong document here. As you scroll down to the change piece, this was very important for us. We asked the group, all the groups, what they felt like we did not do as well as we should, or what needs to be changed, or what are problems within the parks, what are problems within our recreation programs. And some of these did not surprise me, and they're things that we are going to be taking very seriously and addressing right away. You can see number one is the negative perception of the recreation center. Number two is the promotion of programs and events, just getting it out. Some people, we can be done with the registration and they may not know that we ever were taking registration. We want to make sure everyone is aware of all the events and programs we run. Youth program affordability for non-residents. That would be anyone outside of our townships that participate, town of Waupaca, town of Dayton, town of Farmington, and the city of Waupaca. More winter outdoor activities. You'll see removal and replacement of Schwann Lions Park footbridge and customer service at the recreation center, which is something that it's number 6 on there, but as a staff, we'll move that right up next to number 1. And then I just kind of have some narratives on each of those points. The reason you only see 6 there is because you can see there's 4 responses. I didn't want to get into the 1s and 2 responses, as there was a ton of them and it was hard to decipher between those. We get down to the create piece. These are, you'll see in the blue there, the programs, parks, facilities, administration. That is what Park Board wanted us to address as a whole, and then they gave the ideas there as bullet points, as the ABCs, as to how to grade those and prioritize them. Administration, number 4, is a result of 2 retired park and recreation directors that have come in and done an internal audit of our processes, and they typed up a 2-page narrative that they gave to me and with just some suggestions and recommendations, and we plugged that in under the administration matrix, which you will see at the bottom there. I believe it's the last matrix piece. Throughout this, you'll see we have 2015 through 2019. We've also checked possible partners, or if there is a possible partners in helping with this. Also grant opportunities. Moving on to the next section here, why Parks and Recreation is an essential public service. I put some things that I pulled off of our state association website. There's a lot of resources on there, and it just kind of talks to why it's important, why Parks and Recreation is important for communities as well as senior centers. And then you will see the beginning of all of the group results. And I think this is important because obviously not everyone, there's a lot of responses in here, and not everybody's input from all the groups, you won't see all of it on there. That doesn't mean it's not important to us. It doesn't mean we won't go back and look at some of those things, that there's great ideas on there that didn't make it just because of it wasn't repeated throughout multiple groups. This plan is basically a priority list over the next 5 years. That doesn't mean we won't work on other suggestions that were given to us, but everything on here will get addressed. So that is just kind of a brief rundown of the process and what you're looking at. Does anyone have any questions?
Aaron, is this something that you've put out on your website?
Not yet.
It'd be good to get that out there. It's really good.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, I think we've seen some things already that you've been able to implement because of this too. As I would call brainstorming along with this too.
Right, yep, that is very true. And there's some things that, let's take our change piece, for example. There's some things that right now are top of the list that didn't make this, maybe just because it wasn't involved in the community input. If something like that comes up, it's not like we're not going to address it. But it wasn't outlined in these meetings, so.
One other comment I wanted to make too, and this, goes more towards a big thank you to the people that were involved in that. I think it would be appropriate for you to, maybe we use city certificates or something like that, and just thank each one of those individuals that were a part of this. This goes over and above just sitting on the Parks and Rec board.
Yes.
There were many hours involved in this, and you had some help from the UW Extension office and all of that too, so.
Absolutely.
I think that would, even the employees too, I think, they gave up their nights and to be a part of this too, and I think a big pat on the back is always nice.
Okay, I agree.
What we'd be looking for here, anybody have any other questions or comments on this? We'd be looking for the approval of this draft or the strategic plan for the Parks and Recreation Department.
And actually, we would like, I mean, I guess I would like to get it passed through Park Board first, which they've had a month to review it. So my thought was to have them review it here if there was any questions and then pass it at the next meeting.
Okay.
If that works.
Sure. So we have nothing?
No.
All right.
We have nothing.
All right. Okay, next we have communications recommendation of the mayor. Just a couple of things, and we touched on them a little bit already. The next meeting, which is October 21st, you will be seeing the first draft of the budget. We're going to do it within the confines of the council meeting, so it probably will be the last item on the agenda. We don't see that, right now, we don't see that as being a large agenda, except for the budget part of it. So we'll still start at 6 o'clock on the 21st, and again, you're going to see your first chance at what the budget looks like. And then, as Sandy, just as you're looking forward to meetings after that, Sandy reminded us too that the next the first meeting in November is actually on November 5th because we cannot hold a council meeting on an election night, so we move it to the next day according to our ordinance. And then Brennan, remind me again, City Planning Commission is going in November is on the 10th?
That's correct. That's going to be on Tuesday, the 10th.
Instead of the 12th, and that's
The 11th.
just a conflict on your part.
You mean the 11th?
The 11th to Tuesday?
No, Planning Commission is usually on Wednesday nights. You
Well,
are
the
correct.
12th.
It's been moved back to the 11th.
Okay,
Sorry.
the 11th.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. So it's on a Tuesday, the 11th,
Correct.
for city planning people and anybody else that plans on attending. Yeah, that's it. Anything else for the good of the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Lockwood, second by Hagan, that we adjourn till our next regular scheduled meeting, subject to call. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carried. We are adjourned at 7:58 PM. Thanks, everybody, for attending and watching.